Good Thursday evening to everyone. How are you? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. I am the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you loud and clear live on a Thursday night. And I almost forgot. Booger! If you know, you know. Anyway, how are you guys this evening? I hope you're all doing exceptionally well, or at least doing exceptionally, whatever you're doing. Jack Photon, good to see you. Wave of Mutilation. Daniel Rowan. Cyrus Wright. Robert Santon. 33K7 checking in on the X side. And if you are over there on X side, I don't mean the car and boat battery that they were solid performers back when you could buy a car battery for, $29.95 up until like the mid 1990s. Thank you, Clinton administration. Thank you for ruining that forever. But welcome, CJ DeYoung the third. Absolutely, this is the front and back print, by the way. You couldn't get these for a long time. I don't know. Should I do my should I do my my mauled impersonation, my Jason Thorhall, and talk about how I got this T-shirt? I shouldn't. Daniel Rowan, currently in Orlando. Good for you, my friend. Welcome to the city, beautiful. On a nice crisp dyad of late winter days here. Worse than Booger these days. You blame Johnny Sunshine for saying yes, exactly. Orbital Air, hello. The Mad RR Conductor, good to see you. You haven't been around in a hot minute. I hope you've been all right. But anyway, let's see. Cyrus wants the yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Robert Plant, right? He's at DEF CON, and we're hacking together because I do that. I know how to do that. And I'm winning all the trophies for all the hacking, and he says, do you think we should re-release the front and back Zeppelin shirts? And I thought about it for a minute. And so I brought up MS Paint, and I said, look, the right thing to do, this is A, this is re-release the shirts. This is B, this is don't re-release the shirts. And this is C, this one doesn't matter. And, I crossed out B and C, and I said, so you do the right thing. So, and, then you're correct. And he was like, of course, that makes sense. Anyway, Jorge Uribe, good to see you. Jack Ash 138. Where do you get this hat? I found this floating around in a lake in the bottom of Moria. I had to have it blocked and cleaned. I don't know who dropped it, but man, that staircase I had to climb up to get out of there. Drama Goblins, good to see you. Vile Necromancer is back. I want to tell him what you told me last night on Discord, Vile Necromancer, but I'll let you see. Only music podcast allowed. Well, just turn the video off, I guess. Jack, this is an actual piece of merch from Lord of the Rings. I honestly don't know if they still sell them. I saw two variants on this hat, and one was weird. CJ DeYoung, thank you very much for the super. Unfortunately, CJ says he has chores to do this evening, but he's glad he caught the plant story. You're quite welcome, CJ, and thank you. But anyway, so I got this for Christmas for my darling wife, but I saw Gandalf hats in a local comic book store. And I was like, oh, very cool. And I go over and I pick them up, and they were plastic. They were shaped like this, and they had, kind of the bent peak, but they were molded from like ABS. like lightweight ABS, and they were official Lord of the Rings merch. They had tags on them. And they were like 15 or $20, but I couldn't imagine, like, even if you're cosplaying, you'd want a cloth hat that has some give to it. Like, I didn't understand those. I didn't understand the plastic hats. 33K7 giving us an update. Wanted to update the assassin from the temple. He was killed by the group and the city guard. Some poor rolls on your part led to his death. Good. If you guys know Village of Hamlet, you know that story. But yeah, no, you can dig around and get yourself a Gandalf hat like this. I am entirely sure. The one you can't get is I have a purple PvP wizard hat over there. I'm not gonna get up and go get it, but I've worn it sometimes. You can see pictures of me, like the semi-famous photo of me standing there next to Gary. I'm wearing that thing. That was made by a company called the Village Hat Shop for a while for the PvP Online webcomic. And my wife got one for me because I was really into PvP at the time. Then, I don't know, Scott Kurtz did a heel turn when Gary died. So I just kind of, at that point, was like, you know, just parted ways. And I haven't looked at that webcomic in 20 years, I think. I believe it's still going. But anyway, what's going on right now? Well, first of all, let me ask you, if you haven't already, would you please do me a favor and click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. I have a vague recollection of seeing one of your hats on a stream or a video you did, Vile. Oh, that's proper. That is proper. Pool of Radiance, man. How does it play on SNES? You'll have to tell us. You'll have to tell us in the comments. But anyway, if you haven't already, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. When you can find out about all my Wizard Hat live streams and other content that we do around here, because I stream 5 nights a week and I do little videos in between. But sometimes we have more exciting stuff happening. Like, for example, tomorrow night we're playing Gamma World live for your entertainment. So I hope you guys will tune in. Fade TTRPG, thank you very much. Thank you, Fade. I'm glad you like the hat. I really am. But it's March Madness in the Delver's Dungeon. Actually, tonight's content I intended to have for February. February was nuts. February was so busy, I literally slipped my mind and I did not get back around to it. I want to tell you guys a funny story, though, because this is a truly funny story. Those of you who know Elvin Made In, she is a delight in the old school TTRPG creative corner. Yes, we are, Michael Dale. Emmy, as we know her as, just to keep it simple, Emmy has, not just in the sense of like today, just now, this hour, but Emmy recently underwent brain surgery, actual brain surgery. And we were kind of touch and go on for a couple of days there. She was kept in a coma. She apparently was able to wake up and talked to her spouse today. And this is the funny part. This is okay. So spouse reports to someone who's reporting to us on Discord. Spouse expressed serious concern about her memory cognition. because one of the first things she said was when she got on her feet, she was going to really give the business to those jerks on Reddit who were dragging Gygax down after he died. Spouse is apparently not that much of a TTRPGer, and Spouse said she's experiencing some missing time because I do know that Gary died. Person who related this to us is also not that deep in the weeds on tabletop games, so they were equally concerned. We all kind of let them both down easily and said, no, 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 no. Ernie Gygax passed away a few days ago, and the usual gang of idiots on Reddit are slagging him and tearing him down. So not only is she not suffering from memory cognition issues, she's sharp as a tack and ready to attack when she comes back. So I thought that was kind of cute. I thought that was kind of funny. And Emmy, we love you to death, and I cannot wait until you are back up vertical and ready to kick in the teeth of the bad guys out there. Love you to pieces, sweetheart. So, she did. She absolutely, yes. She was talking about Ernie 33K7. She kept it. She held on to that rage powered recovery, and you got to appreciate it. Chris, people are attacking Ernie because Ernie, having been born in 1958, did not have current day sensibility and knowledge. So, yes, drama goblins. That, yeah, alleged. But they're all a bunch of cowards. Let me tell you something. If you're on Reddit and you're on r/OSR and you are happy about the passing of Ernie and you think he was a terrible person, you are scum. You're scum and you should rethink your life so you cannot be scum. They removed the enemy spellcasters? Oh, boo, boo. Yeah, I just assume our RPG are bad. But the thing, the snakes of r/OSR, they pretend to be fans of old school. What they want are their shitty story games wrapped up in OD&D and AD&D clothes. Not that they would ever say anything good about OD&D and AD&D. Yes, that's another thing, Bob. Speaking of people who are scum, the new Star Frontiers thing, people decided that Ernie was part of that. A lie can go around the world 3 times before the truth can get out of bed. And because these people are addicted to negativity, it is a massive push on the dopamine release button to see something that makes them angry and then to scream at the top of their lungs about it and have their negative feelings validated. So if you come back to them and say, no, here are the facts, they'll call you a German Workers' Party member of the 1930s for not supporting their distorted, screwed up facts. Largely, yes, Damien. You get a lot of that. Matt R.R. Conductor, I think POR came on 3.5 floppies, but I know it came on 6 5.25 floppies for the Commodore 64. So those would have been single sided. Well, they could have been double sided discs, turning them over. How big was a SNES cart in terms of storage? Because that's really the issue. I can't even say that because of the phonetics, Robert Turner. Rory says, just watch the day after. That's a rather grim mini-series. Not a lot happening there. That's good. The Pool of Radiance from I look forward to it, Vile. You know how to you know how to get a hold of me. Let's see. Oh, that is lovely. That is lovely. I'm gonna share this right now. I'm gonna put that up on the screen. We're gonna zoom in and center and zoom and center. The price though, ouch. Look at that, guys. That is the SNES version. 124 bucks. 124 bucks. Wowzers. I bought all 6 of them for the PC from GOG for like $2.99, like literally $2.99. They were having a sale on good old games, and I downloaded them. Wait, that's not showing for you guys? How is that not showing for you guys? Let me look on X. Let's get up to what in the hell? This is happening everywhere. That is so weird. Share screen, share screen. Because it wasn't doing it last night, I don't think. If I do that, and now I do that. Do you guys see anything now? No, I'm looking at it. That is so bizarre. Now I'm worried that I'm not that the. All right, let me see if I can do this. Let me add window capture. See if it'll let me add this. Okay. There you guys go. I know you guys can see that because I can see that. I have added that. That is a box copy of Pool of Radiance that Vile Necromancer located. I feel like I'm gonna. You know what? Here, let me do a thing. Let me shrink me down a little bit. I can move that down there. My goodness. The stuff I got to do. Whoop! I made myself go away. I made myself go away. Let's bring that all the way down there. There we go. Can we go back? So I'll tell you guys a funny story. Well, I think it's funny anyway. I control the vertical and the horizontal. I apparently don't control the vertical and the horizontal. But no, I will tell you guys a funny story. There is a wonderful YouTuber. He is like the most humble, unassuming guy on YouTube of all the weird tech YouTubers, and he goes by the handle of Matt KC. His stuff is fun. It gets very brainiacy. Um, the game on the SNES was 640K. That tracks for the number of floppies that it was on back in the day. But anyway, for reasons that are beyond the scope of this discussion, Matt KC ported back a Microsoft Windows library or DLL or tool or something. He backported this tool to get something running in Windows 95, and by doing it, by literally changing just a few bytes, he made it so thousands of software applications written after Windows 95, stuff for 2000, XP, 8, Vista, 10, 7, all of that can now potentially run on Windows 95. That is pretty mind-blowing. That is pretty damn mind-blowing. I hope he continues down that rabbit hole. I genuinely hope he continues down that rabbit hole. And it was literally just a few bytes of code he had to change. It was not like, well, I had to port this and then I had to recompile that and I have to run this in that kind of emulation mode. And just, wow. No, I think 7 was the last good Windows, Jack. I will disagree with you. I serviced enough XP to know that it was, I don't think they ever got security holes in XP fixed properly. And if you don't believe me, spin up a VM, install like XPSP3, or did they get to 4? Whatever the most patched XP is, connect your VM, make sure it is completely isolated from your host machine, connect your VM to the internet, go to bed, get up the next morning. It will be raw, if you know what I mean. I hated 8, I hated 10, and I hate 11. I'm on 10. But the reason I hated 8 and 10 and 11 was I love the Aero Glass look. I think it is the coolest visual thing that Microsoft ever did. I think it's yoinks better than the flat Chicago UI. And they took Aero Glass and threw it away. And the reason they did that was they decided that the future was going to be tablets and ultra portables. And glass is a hog. Or so they thought. They once again completely freaking screwed up on, God, I am sounding like Jason Thor Hall now, aren't I? But they decided that you're not, I mean, when Vista, which was what was top of the line, or when Vista came out, the top of the line GPUs were like a GeForce 5900, I think. I'll have to go back and check. But if you're already doing 3D gaming, that's sitting under there. Now, I don't think they saw where the power curve on GPUs was going. But they wanted Windows everywhere. Windows is going to be on a tablet, which is probably what you're going to be using. Windows is going to be on a phone, and everybody will be using Windows phones. And since we want a consistent UI across the board, we're taking away all the 3D effects because phones and tablets won't have that kind of GPU power anyway, and it's probably going to bog down computers in the future. By the time 7 what was done and Microsoft was like, no more support for 7, it was what, 700 series GPUs that could chew up and swallow, or no, 10 series GPUs that could chew up and swallow Aero glass without a problem. But they had already started, when they started work on 8, late builds of 8 still had Aero glass. You could go in and change a registry setting and access Aero glass. And even some early retail builds, I'm told, like student builds. But they patched that out very quick. And nobody, not the Windows blinds people, nobody has come up with an Aero glass interface. Anyway, I'm sorry about the rant. So what we're doing tonight, and I had intended to go into this in February, like I said, Dragon Magazine, and let's see. I'm going to have to change that. First, I got to do this. It is a very important issue of Dragon Magazine. A very important issue of Dragon Magazine. And where did it go? Let's see. Oh, no, it's not in downloads. Sorry about that. That's my fault. And when you see this, you may ask, why is this so important, Bill? Why is this so darn important? And, well, I will tell you when we get there. This is a landmark issue of Dragon Magazine. Now, don't spoil it for people if you already have this issue. So I got to change this. This is it. This was old enough that it is the Dragon. And I think what I'm going to have to do is resize me, and I got to do this on the fly because thank you, StreamYard. And then give this some more screen space. And I actually did a video about this once upon a time when I was on Facebook, I think. I may have been simul streaming at that point, but I don't think I was. Anyway, this is Dragon number 22. And why is it important? It's not important just because it has some SCA types fighting along with, oh, who is that? Is that a proto Warduke back there? No, why this issue is important is Imagine, if you will, that it is 1977, or rather 1978. You are Jones. Hey, Wheeling Dragon, how are you? You are the proud owner of a monster manual and a player's handbook. And you have OD&D, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're just getting into this. You are jonesing to play advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but you can't. Why not? Dungeon Master's Guide isn't out yet. Monster Manual released like almost 2 years ago. Player's Handbook came out a year later. What do? Well, in February of 1979, this issue of The Dragon dropped. Now, I actually have a physical issue of this, but it doesn't avail me to show it to you guys on camera for obvious reasons. Sneak preview of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, when you get sneak previews of stuff, typically you're going to get a little bit of fiction, maybe some of the art, maybe you get enough of the stuff to get a layout. Gary was still in business control enough of the company at this point that he could do better than that for players. This is unprecedented. Now, there are quick start games that have been released since this. But this is something else. This is something else entirely. Because at this point, you can kind of try and play D&D with OD&D and the Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook. But how do you go forward? I remember that summer 78 re-release. I wanted to go, and my folks wouldn't. Hey, take care, 33K7. Thank you. Rest well. Oh, look, there's some awesome. I think that's supposed to be Tecumel miniatures. So let's take a look at what you got for a sneak preview in the Dragon, and we're going to talk about why this is so important. And I got to zoom in on this. By the way, you can find this PDF out on the interwebs. But here we go. Sneak preview, AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. Work on the third volume of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons series, the Dungeon Master's Guide, is now in progress. As much as we deal with, and in fantasy, the real-world limitations of time and space place limitations on the speed of our endeavors. Thus, it now appears that the Dungeon Master's Guide will be released at Gen Con 12, August 16 through the 19th, 1979. Punters. Absolute amateur hour up there at Lake Geneva. We convention for 5 days around here, boys and girls. I saw it on TV, Rory, and I was overwhelmed. And I thought something that cool looking was probably an R-rated movie that I wouldn't get to go see. And when I saw it was PG, I was like, oh, I really want to see that. And we did. At the University of Wisconsin, Parkside, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
The extra time is necessary if you, the gamers, wish a product that is comparable in quality to the player's handbook. Oh, Gary. I saw that one in the theater too, Jack. That was a winter release, was it not? Um, and here we go. This is why this is key. We do realize, however, the plight of many gamers attempting to find a happy medium between old rules as in original D&D and basic D&D with the newer rules of advanced D&D as in the player's handbook without the benefit of the full AD&D system being in print. We therefore present this sneak preview of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And this is where stuff gets real. We therefore included are all combat and saving throw matrices and certain newly discovered magic items which have already appeared in print in one of the dungeon modules. G1 Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, G2 Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl, G3 Hall of the Fire Giant King, and so on. Magic items which are explained in the text of the modules are not repeated here. Yeah, good thoughts up for your daughter, Michael. So we jump right in. If you are a new dungeon master or an old dungeon master back in 1979 when this came out, and you were jonesing to get your AD&D on, for $2.50 for this issue of Dragon, I think it was $2.50. We can just scroll back up and look at the cover. Yeah. Sorry, for $2. For $2 plus whatever you'd spent on the players in the monster manual, you were good to go. And plus, let's be 100% honest, this was a fine way for TSR to double dip on you. Well, I got to have it now. And then I'll spend $15 on the Dungeon Master's Guide. So they could soak you for the today equivalent of, $15. And then soak you for the today equivalent of $60. So we have the Amulet of Many Planes, the Hammer of Thunderbolts, the Snits, the Filter of Love, Filter of Persuasiveness, Periaptive Proof Against Poison, Pearl of Wisdom. I'm not going to dig through all of this. There's an ad for Snit's Revenge. Anybody want to play some Snit's Revenge? I think you can still buy it. I think you can still buy Snit's Revenge. But you get the idea. Just like they said, here's the magic items. But this is where the combat system kicks in a high gear. So we got a taste. Yeah, exactly what you would expect in a preview, in a sneak preview. Dude, let me tell you what. Ask Jack Photon. Old ads are awesome. So right now, we jump straight into, yeah, that was what, Talislanta, north of the Rockies? Was that the game? Or was it Joe Roon? I know Joe Roon didn't have elves, but I don't know if they leaned on that. Blade Runner was 82, Terminator was 84, Silent Running was 70, Saturn V, I think, was 75 or 76. 70s and 80s science fiction was where it was at. 2010, Outland, The Thing, Alien, Aliens. And somebody like absolutely convinced that Aliens was a 1990s movie. So we have grenade-like missiles. We have grenade throwing. Just think about it for a second, though. If this is you, if this is back in the 1970s, you've got no Dungeon Master's Guide, $2. And it's the combat system. It's melee for everybody. This is an OCR error, by the way. This screw up. I have this magazine in print, and this error is not here. They're both excellent, Chris. They're both excellent. They're completely different types of movies, though. Alien is a horror film. Aliens is a war movie. They're related by a name and a concept, but you know, I it's like Platoon versus Halloween. Armor class description. Attack matrices for thieves, assassins, and monks. Assassination tables. And most importantly, attack matrices for monsters. This is an incredibly important issue of Dragon Magazine. Here's your turning undead for clerics now. You as a dungeon master get, oh, and look, psionic combat. You get everything you need in this issue. You can start playing AD&D. See, I think what happened here was, there's our saving throw charts. And that, I think, ends it. Oh, Gary, clapping back on a review. You guys want me to read through this? The SPI on AD&D part? But I think what happened is, I think TSR may have Osborne affected themselves. And I don't have any sales data in front of me. I'd have to talk to Paul Stormberg and see if he could find some. So let me tell you what the Osborne effect is. Osborne was a computer company, and they were selling a luggable, just an absolute beast of a machine. it was like the size of a suitcase you'd be taking on a good 4-day vacation, with a screen like this big in the middle of it. It ran CPM, Control Program Manager. And the yeah, computer with a handle. It was a luggable. It weighed about 40 pounds. But the fact was, it was luggable. You could take it places. And it was really successful. Osborne taunted Steve Jobs at some kind of conference and said, next year, your kids are going to be using an Osborne. Well, they released a new and improved Osborne machine. And they got a lot of pre-orders for it. They gave their keynote at CES, where they had, actually, no, what was it, pre-orders, or was it, no, they were just selling the luggable. The C64C was a phenomenal computer, and I kick myself for not picking one up through newspaper classifieds, because it seems like there was one up every week. There were one or two being sold off in the late 80s and early 90s. Anyway, they announced a new machine. And they announced all of its features. And it was going to be so much better than the machine that they were currently building and wanted you to buy. People stopped buying that model of Osborne and said, well, I'll just wait. Osborne ran out of operating capital. Pew, gone. See you around, Rory. They killed their own company. I kind of wonder if at this juncture TSR wasn't feeling the same kind of heat. To be honest, kind of in that same era. They're sitting on stocks of basic D&D and OD&D. But people aren't buying it because AD&D is coming out. Well, they can keep selling players' handbooks and monster manuals, but people might also just be saying, well, I'm just going to save my money and just buy it all when it comes out. Why am I going to buy it now if I can't play it? I think they did this to jumpstart. I think they did this to jumpstart sales of the player's handbook and monster manual, and maybe even get some OD&D sales unclogged and moving too. I think that is why this came out. They knew the people had been waiting almost 2 years for the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I think, sorry, I'm laughing at Wave and Rob's exchange there. I think TSR said, yeah, we're screwed. If we tell people they're going to have to wait February, March, April, May, June, July, August, 7 more months, we might be in a lot of trouble. Let's get something in their hands and make this playable. I think that's what's going on here. I think that's what you're seeing manifest in Dragon Magazine. But what do you guys think? So let's do it. You guys want me to do the review? Oh, yeah, I don't think they would have done this right off the bat, Robert. All right. I will do the review, and if I can make it through this whole thing at a good pace, it is a fascinating section. It's also been reprinted more times than I can think of any D&D article ever. It even got reprinted like late. It got reprinted by who is it? Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank? Paizo. When Paizo was running Dragon Magazine, they interviewed Gary. They republished More Castle. I think it was Dungeon 112. And they reprinted the Nomenclature of Polearms article. It's here. It's in Best of Dragon. It's in another Best of Dragon. And I think it's in like Dungeon 112. And it's in Unearthed Arcana. If there is a more reprinted article from back in the day, I don't know about it. I tried to show some polearms some love, but they asked me not to come back into that Ponderosa Steakhouse anymore. Okay, if I can make it through this thing without stumbling over a word, and I can do it at a decent enough pace, somebody's got to super chat me. So here we go. SPI on AD&D, Gary Gygax. A recent review of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook and SPI's House Organ, Strategy and Tactics demonstrated that the reviewer, Richard Berg, does not play Dungeons & Dragons. This handicap prevented him from intelligently contrasting and comparing the old game form with the new, and it proved to be a fatal drawback in terms of the value of the statements Mr. Berg made. Pontificating from his lofty height, the reviewer boldly asserted that Player's Handbook was not a game design, but merely a simple rewriting of what had already been given in the original Dungeons & Dragons. Claiming that the majority of the work was pig's lips or some such, Mr. Berg went on to point out that he felt sure that dedicated D&D players would find the work useful and valuable anyway. Of course, an antique set of ivory chessmen will be appreciated only by the chess aficionado. Dabblers will be satisfied with a lesser offering, and those who are not devotees of the game will find the cost outrageous unless they also happen to appreciate works of art. The analogy could be better, but when one considers the success of AD&D in general, and Player's Handbook in particular, there are obviously quite a number of those dedicated players who disagree with the learned Mr. Berg's assessment. Thank you, Bob. Reaction from players has been uniformly favorable. Workmanship in AD&D is far superior to that of its predecessor. The analogy is poor only when cost is considered. AD&D, when it is complete in its projected form, will by no means be as costly as an antique ivory chess set. Under the circumstances, one can only wonder why Mr. Berg took the time to write on a subject of which he obviously knows so little. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! I am so sorry. Of which he obviously knew so little. Perhaps it is personal or professional jealousy, as the success of D&D and now AD&D has certainly set the rest of the gaming hobby industry on its collective ear, but that is speculation. What is worthy of comment, however, is the source of the critical commentary on AD&D being nothing more than a rewrite of D&D. coming from an officer of SPI, the past masters of the rehash, artisans of the warmed over World War II battle game, purveyors of the umpteenth version of the same tired scenario, it is indeed a wonder that Mr. Berg would bring up such a specter. In my view, however, this is not the case of the pot calling the kettle black, but rather a case of the pot complaining because its besuited vision causes it to imagine that it detects a spot of tarnish on the silver salver above it. Then again, perhaps it stems from the fact that SPI's best fantasy adventure game to date, despite extensive advertising and hype, despite riding the coattails of J.R.R. Tolkien, comes nowhere near the sales records of Player's Handbook, and Mr. Berg has never himself authored or designed a game half as popular as D&D/AD&D. Draw your own conclusions, dear reader, and Richard, the ball is back in your court, Gary Gygax. Damn it! I was so close. I was so close. I was coming into the fourth quarter, and then I fumbled the ball. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the super just the same. Now dig this. Jack Photon might be particularly interested to this. Starfleet Orion awaits your command. Take command as you've never been able to before. In Starfleet Orion, forget about game mechanics and concentrate on fighting your ships. The computer handles the rules and bookkeeping. You play the game. Faster combat resolution, simultaneous movement, limited intelligence. The game mechanics are clear and simple. The game is exciting and challenging. Starfleet Orion is far more than just a computer program. It's designed as a true computer war game. Includes everything you expect in a war game. Rule book, illustrated battle manual, 22 ship program listings, and 22 ship types, 12 play-tested scenarios, historical commentary, tips on tactics, ship control sheets, computer program listings, and program cassette. Complete. No knowledge of programming required. See for yourself. You'll agree Starfleet Orion offers far more than a conventional wargame. True simultaneous movement, limited intelligence, automated combat resolution, easy to learn, 2 or more players. Requires Commodore PET computer with 8 kilobytes of RAM. Send check or money order to Automated Simulations Department D, P.O. Box 4232, Mountain View, California, 94040, $16.95 complete or $11.95 without cassette. California residents, please add 6% sales tax. But anyway, this particular company, Automated Simulations, became the company known as Epix, which brought us, of course, the Temple of Apshai series. They also did a science fiction game based on the Apshai engine, but I cannot recall what it was. But yes, this was Epix. This was Epix back in 1979, and I think this was their first release. Again, it's for the Commodore PET, which means it is almost certainly written in BASIC. I suppose they could have written it in ASM. Yes, absolutely. We can look at the where D&D is going section. Speech center, my brain is broken down. I think we can do this. What it is and where it's going, and this is also by Gary. Let us zoom and I will read. Now, if I make it through this without making a mistake, so then I laughs and says to him, gee, half the party wiped out and the only loot is a single +1 arrow. That's pretty funny. What you going to do with it? Yes, Gonzalo, this is Dragon Magazine, number 22, February 1979. Dungeons and Dragons, What It Is and Where It Is Going by Gary Gygax. Dungeons and Dragons pioneered role playing in the gaming hobby. It brought fantasy before hobbyists, and it set before them a game form most had never heard of. Perhaps 150,000 persons now play D&D, but it was by no means an instant success. 1,000 box sets, hand assembled and labeled, took 11 months to sell. Another 1,000 of the same took only 5 or 6 months to sell, and Tactical Studies Rules was thrilled. Finally, a third printing of 2000 sold out in 5 months. So from January 1974 to December 1975, only 4,000 sets of the original version of the game were in circulation. Of course, I have no way of knowing how many pirated copies of D&D were in existence, but some estimates place a figure at about 20% of the total sales, some as high as 50%. In any case, 5 or 6,000 sets was certainly nothing to set the gaming world on fire, or was it? Today, the basic set sells 4,000 copies per month, and the sales graph is upward. A month has not gone by in the last 2 years when I haven't been interviewed by one or more newspaper writers or independent journalists who want to know all about D&D. I have likewise been interviewed by radio and TV news media, generally for the same reason. At the risk of claiming too much for the game, I have lately taken to likening the whole to Aristotle's Poetics, carrying the analogy to even more ridiculous heights by stating that each dungeon master uses the rules to become a playwright, hopefully of Shakespearean stature. Scripting only plot outlines, however, and the players become the thespians. Before incredulity slackens so as to allow the interviewer to become hostile, I hasten to add that the analogy applies only to the basic parts of the whole pastime, not to the actual merits of D&D, its DMs, or players. If you consider the game, the analogy is actually quite apt. Dungeons and Dragons is like none other in that it requires the game master to create part or all of a fantasy world. Players must then become personae in this place and interact with the other populace. This is, of course, a tall order for all considered, rules, DM, and players alike. Relating a basic adventure, an episodic game session in the campaign, to a trip in an underground labyrinth does help the uninitiated to understand the simplest D&D fundamentals. Discover an unknown area, move around in it by means of descriptive narration from the dungeon master, overcome whatever obstacles are there, traps, problems, or monsters, and return with whatever has been gained during the course of the whole. The DM takes the part of everything in this fantasy world which is not operated by a player. While this should not mean it is then a game of DM versus the players, it does mean that Dungeons and Dragons is a cooperative game where players must interact successfully amongst themselves first, and non-hostile portions of the campaign may loo thereafter in order to be successful. The dungeon master is incidentally against the players when he or she is operating that part of the world which is hostile or potentially so, but in general, the referee must be disinterested. At about this point, I am always asked, well, then, how do you win? Who wins? The answer is everybody. Providing that the game is well run, the DM gets a satisfaction of testing his abilities against those of the players, the fun of taking the non-player parts, and the accolades of the participants when a particularly well done adventure or series has been completed. Players enjoy the challenges of each situation and have the prospect of continuing adventures and puzzles to confront them, each with his or her game persona. Thus, all taking part in the campaign to get something besides a momentary diversion. Winning no more applies to D&D than it does to real life. The successful DM and players gain renown via their campaigns or superior characters. To enthusiasts of the game, it is far more satisfying than triumphing in a single game or a whole series of games. Simply stated, D&D is a multiplayer game of fantasy role-playing where the rules give systems of resolution for common game occurrences lists and explanation of things which are not actual, monster spells, magic items, etc., systems for interaction, and suggestions as to how to put this into the campaign, i.e., create the melu. There you go, Jack. The future is Photon. Take care, Rob Turner. Once begun, the campaign continues until the DM and/or all the players decide it should end. As with any exercise in fantasy, it requires suspension of disbelief. Those who find the game interesting will soon enough thereafter create their own sort of involvement and belief. But why is such a game, and similar fantasy role-playing games for that matter, so popular? What is its appeal? Our modern world has few, if any, frontiers. We can no longer escape to the frontier of the West, explore darkest Africa, sail to the South Seas. Even Alaska and the Amazon jungles will soon be lost as wild frontier areas. Furthermore, adventurers are not generally possible anymore. Adventures are not generally possible anymore. The frontiers are receding into memories. Modern communications make all of the world available to casual travelers, and the most backward places are becoming more and more civilized. Certainly, it is still possible to go scuba diving, mountain climbing, auto racing, skydiving, and so on. These are expensive and risky for no real purpose in most cases. One can also have adventures as a criminal, or possibly as an agent of the government if one is sufficiently qualified. But the former is distasteful to say the least, and the latter is most unlikely. Americans, with more leisure time today than ever, crave entertainment. Some desire adventure and excitement. Obviously, various entertainment media are doing big business. TV, motion pictures, entertainment, spectator sports, recreational vehicles, sporting goods, book publishers, and game manufacturers are all growing. Escape fiction sells better today than ever, and witness the success of the recent science fiction and fantasy films. Looking towards space and the future for new frontiers and adventures is logical. The universe has fascinated mankind since recorded history, and today it seems quite probable that within a few decades, numbers of us will live off of the Earth, and in a century or so, we will travel to the stars. Perhaps there will be frontiers and adventures. Stars? Frontiers? Somebody write that down. Perhaps there will be frontiers and adventures enough for all who care to test their mettle. But it is no less surprising for us to look into the realms of fantasy for imagined adventure. Most literate people grow up on a diet of fairy tales, Walt Disney, and comic book superheroes. We somehow relate to stories of young princes going out into the world to seek their fortune, of knights rescuing maidens in distress and slaying dragons, of dealings with wicked magicians and evil witches. The myth of all peoples contains great stocks of such fantasy lore. If nothing else, then the desire to believe in such seems to be innate in humanity. Whether or not there are parallel worlds or places where the fantastic creatures actually live and magic works is not germane, for most of us are familiar with the concepts as if they were actual, and we have a desire to become involved, if only vicariously, amongst such heroic epics of magic and monsters. It is therefore scarcely surprising that a game which directly involves participants in a make-believe world of just such nature should prove popular. And had I reasoned out the enthusiasm it roused among the first few who played it, it would have been evident that D&D was destined to become a very popular game indeed. Naturally, hindsight is usually a 20/20 proposition, and the fact that I wrote the game for a small audience of devoted miniatures players. If millions take to the fantasy world of J.R.R. Tolkien, and nearly as many follow the heroic feats of Conan, the market for a potential game system which provides participants with a pastime which creates play resembling these adventuresome worlds and their inhabitants is bounded only by accessibility. Access has two prominent aspects. Availability is the first, that is, are potential players informed of the fact that the game exists and are they able to physically obtain it, and difficulty is the second. For if once obtained, the game is so abstruse as to be able to be played only by persons with intelligence far above the norm, or if the game demands a volume of preliminary work which is prohibitive for the normal individual, this will be recognized and the offering shunned even if it is available. D&D failed on both counts, and still its following grew. Today we are putting D&D onto the track where it is envisioned it will have both maximum availability and minimum difficulty. This is best illustrated in the basic set. Ardu, hello, good evening to you, my friend. How are you? Well, over 2 years ago, we recognized that there was a need for an introductory form of the game. In 1977, the colorfully boxed basic set was published. It contained simplified, more clearly written rules, dungeon geomorphs, selections of monsters and treasures to place in these dungeons, and a set of polyhedra dice. In short, all that a group of beginning players need to start play with relative ease. Later editions have cleaned up most of the flaws in the first, and the newest will do away with the geomorphs and list of monsters and treasures in favor of a complete basic module so that difficulty will be reduced even further. This should broaden the game's appeal to a base in the millions, and then the major factor becomes availability. Popular demand always increases availability, and D&D has been blessed by its enthusiasts most generously in this regard. Coupled with the work being done by TSR to publicize and promote the game, the availability factor will also be maximized over the next few years. Does this read a lot like Gary's reading like something to the board of directors at TSR? Ardu, we started out. Okay, so in 1979, in February of 1979, yeah, not Pardu, Ardu. In 1979, Dragon Magazine number 22 came out. And this is almost a year before the Dungeon Master's Guide come out. So there's no AD&D is incomplete in terms of presentation of core rules. However, in this issue, they have all of the combat rules for AD&D. So with what you've got with basic or with original D&D, the Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual, you can take this issue of Dragon Magazine back in 79 and successfully run AD&D. At any rate, where was I? Basically, what Gary is talking about the division here between original D&D, Holmes Basic, and AD&D, which is being published. Now, this does go on, guys, for a good long stretch, basically an entire other page. My question to you, dear viewers, all 158 of you, according to the good folks over here on the little indication thing. At this moment, there is a basic D&D. It is the Holmes basic Dungeons and Dragons. Moldvay basic hasn't come out, and Menser basic just built on Holmes basic. So it's Beckme is a ways down the street. Beckme is a ways down the street. But if you guys want me to keep going, I can keep going, just one word at a time, just reading this whole thing out, or we can call it done. It's up to you guys. It's up to you guys. Just let me know. I'm resting my throat right now. It is pretty dry, Gonzalo. It really is. I mean, we can kind of jump to the end. I think this is probably a good place to go. All that being so, what is the purpose of this column? The reader may justifiably inquire. Well, as I make no claim to perfection, no such claim can be made for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or D&D for that matter. This column will cover controversial rules or systems, problem and so-called problem areas of D&D or AD&D, and consider new material as well. If the games are not to be continually changing and evolving, neither is it envisioned that they will have reached such a state of perfection so as to become immutable. What appears herein is a discussion which will sometimes lead to alteration, amendment, or expansion of one or the other system. Initially, what you read here will be direct from me, in that case, Gary Gygax. But all DMs and players also are invited to submit article material of high caliber. A glance at the introductory section of all the works comprising the D&D AD&D systems will show that many individuals contributed to the designs. The list is in the forthcoming Dungeon Master's Guide. The list in the Dungeon Master's Guide is longer still. All of these individuals and the audience at large are cordially invited to submit their thoughts and opinions on pertinent matters. If I am not to be the great God Gygax, a claim I have never made nor supported, there must be input which presents argumentation and systems which are meaningful alternatives to replace or augment existing rules and systems. This is not to say that anyone's favorite variant, even if well designed, is likely to become D&D or AD&D, but at worst, reasons for why it is unacceptable will be given, and the possible results could be a major change in the game. So here's your forum. Let us hope it becomes a useful and meaningful exchange. Take care, Jorge. So that's it. The article basically is Gary saying, hey, here's where D&D was. I gotta do this manually because thank you, StreamYard. But in a nutshell, it says, here's where D&D was, and here's how things have changed. And here's how you can affect change. Basically, this is a post by Gary, and he's opening responses below it. He may not change your games, or he may not change his games based on your input, but you're certainly free to alter the game as you see fit, as it fits your table. So that's it. That's it, guys. For Gary's column. It is fascinating to see AD&D at this crossroads. I remember a number of years ago, and if you feel like engaging in some internet spelunking to find what I'm talking about, a player's handbook was found in a used bookstore, eBay auction. Somebody dug it up. I don't know what. But the player's name and address was inside the flyleaf. And they had gone through this very early release of the player's handbook. It was yellow flyleaf. Making some very, very, very critical remarks about the player's handbook and how it had changed from OD&D to AD&D. Bitching about the monk, bitching about thieves, just on and on and on and on. Referring to the design of the monk as, you know, good God, could Gygax have been any dumber? This stinks like rotten egg farts, and just on and on. Just filled the pages. Not just with, I'm going to mark that out and make that 24,000 XP. Just reason why and ugly commentary written through the book. But they found it. And so they started mailing it to each other, this group of people, but they also shared scans of it. Anyone who doesn't think that we didn't grouse about D&D back in the old days, you need to go over to the Akium and dig through their forums and see if you can find that marked up player's handbook. They even tracked the guy down. He was like embarrassed. He's like, I completely forgot about this. I was like 12 years old in 1979, and you guys are finding this like in the early mid 2000s. Okay. Boy, was he ass mad. Boy, was he ass mad about that player's handbook. Not Gary, the person who bought it. But it just goes to show. That, yeah, people's opinions, man, about D&D goes all the way back to the start of the game. You know, one of the first places you'll find mention of Dungeons and Dragons on the internet? It is in a Usenet discussion from 1985 being passed around on ARPANET, complaining about Unearthed Arcana, bitching about the power curve on Unearthed Arcana. 11 years after the release of D&D. You can go through these magazines. You can find PDFs of the strategic review, the strategic preview if you dig around hard enough, Polyhedron, RPGA newsletter, all of that stuff. And Dragon and Dungeon magazine. The idea that there is somehow this toxic gas that's been released out on the internet and makes us say hateful things about D&D to each other, it's as old as the hobby. I bet you could dig up copies of The General, which was either Avalon Hill or SPI's in-house magazine. Diplomacy game zines. People going at each other hammer and tongs. It's not new. It's not some shocking new development in incivility. Yes, ass mad. No, when I say yellow, it's orange. You know, I mean, it's, see if I can get my True First down here without causing an avalanche. I know how much you guys love it when I pull crap down on myself. See if I can get this out. Hey, I did it. No avalanche. Look at that. Yeah, I mean, kind of a goldenrod color. I think the character sheets are the same color. I don't think it is, Gonzalo. In the hobby, I don't think it is. I think what we've gotten is immediacy. If I wanted to call you, you know, if I wanted to call you an asshole for your opinions on D&D, because of something you'd said in Dragon Magazine, I would have to write a response. In my response to Gonzalo Lira, let me say, sir, you are an asshole. And I'd have to mail it to you. Or I'd have to mail it to Dragon Magazine and hope that they would publish in another issue of Dragon Magazine my griping at you. Bandwidth was tiny. Bandwidth was so tiny. No, there are white flyleaf issues too. See, let me see. How about this one? This one is a first. Nope, orange flyleaves. What about you? I think there were plenty of people champing at the bit. Nope, that's also orange. And it's also falling apart, a rarity for those. But yeah, if you wanted to get involved in a flame war with someone, it could take months to resolve, months and months to resolve. Oh, that's interesting, Bob. Yeah, the earliest releases of the Player's Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual. Monster Manual had red flyleaves. Um, Dungeon Master's Guide had goldenrod and or I'm gonna look at this one too. Be careful though. I really don't want to tear the paper on the cover with scraggly fingernails. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. So let's see. This is a true first Dungeon Master's Guide. Yeah. There's your flyleaves. Ah. Vintage. Anyway. So I don't feel like there has been that much of a change in people's attitudes. I just think it's the immediacy. Imagine going back to 1979 and you show people a button you carry around in your pocket. And you can just shoot your opinion straight into someone's eyesight range. I had kind of a similar experience, and I've told this before. I learned to play D&D with Keep on the Borderlands and a set of dice. There's just enough rules in Keep on the Borderlands to kind of get to stumbling forward fast enough to realize some of the fundamentals of the game. But even at that time, even when I started to realize that there was D&D and AD&D, I thought you played I thought you played basic D&D until your characters hit 4th level, because all of the modules I saw were from character levels 4 to 7. So I thought you played basic D&D until your characters hit 3rd level, and then you picked up and started playing AD&D. And Gary's words to me were, well, we certainly didn't disabuse anyone of the notion that you should do that. We were very happy with people buying 2 sets of D&D books. That's fine. That is absolutely fine. Ardu had not been released in 1979. I was already out. I was a War Games release. I wasn't even a role-playing game. I was released when Chainmail was in 1970. So yeah. But anyway, Bob Jester, the 67 edition. Bob Jester is an old Avalon Hill game. I played AD&D 2nd edition table for almost 3 years. That was Greyhawk until I learned that it was not. Was it like Carl Sargent Greyhawk? Like From the Ashes and Die Vecna Die and Greyhawk Wars and all that nonsense? Over Avalon the Hill. I don't know. That was funnier in my head. Already with the lasers and the dark light special coating. Older than MTV. I'm older than MTV, but then I've already said that I'm older than MTV. Anyway, we're kind of meandering at this point. I hope you guys have enjoyed that deep dive into Dragon Magazine. I hope you will want to hang out with us tomorrow night We are playing Gamma World. What do I mean by that before we wrap up for the evening? What do I mean by we are playing Gamma World? If you haven't tuned into the show before, it's not a thing where you just sit there passively and stare at the computer or listen to your computer while we drone on about rolling dice. I want you guys to interact. If you see the way we're playing and you have questions about it, I want you to ask in the chat right over here. I want you to ask questions about why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing what we're doing, and just feel free to ask. If I don't answer your question, one of the other players might. If they don't answer your question, someone in the audience might, because folks, I'm here to tell you for free, I have the best looking and smartest audience of all of the 5-night-a-week live stream old school TTRPG shows on YouTube, and I will kill on that hill. So I think that if I don't answer, they will. You've been watching Gamma World. What edition are we playing? First edition Gamma World, my friend. First edition. I always wanted to try first edition, but it was it just called to me, and I saw it on print on demand, so I got it. Ardu, I hope you are here. You are quite welcome, Lord Misfit. Those dragons with computer code for the reader. Yes, Jack Photon, email me. I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to tell you how to do it. We can do it. That is fine show fodder. I'm excited about that because you can do it. And I'm going to tell you right now how you can do it too. Dragon magazines with type-in computer programs are OCR'd. That is their optically character recognition. Gonzalo, thank you very much for the re-up. I appreciate it. Nope, you asked. It's going to happen. If I go into a magazine, let me see if I can do this. You asked, and I'm going to do it to you now. Let's turn that back on. Okay, I'm not going to put me on the cover. You see how I can highlight that? So if I copy that, well, let's do this. Well, let's add this one to the screen. I really am doing the Jason Hall thing, aren't I? Let's add another window. Okay, here's Notepad. I copied a bunch of text. That's the bunch of text from Dragon Magazine. And why is that important, you might ask? Simply because if I can copy and paste the text out of a document, I can into a document, I can copy and paste the text into a basic interpreter, and then I can run the code. It's that simple. No typing required. We're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. Michael Dale, thank you. Thank you for the re-up. I'll have to edit. I'll have to put some spit and polish on it. Yes, we speak authentic Western gibberish around here. Don't mind. Don't mind us. Who runs the NCOD X account? Oh, Nerd Council of Doom. We got plans for you people. Don't you worry about that. Wave of Mutilation, thank you for the re-up. Whew, I heard a lot of Brazilian Portuguese when I was working in a record store in the mall down near the airport here in the Orlando area. Let me tell you what, I heard it day in and day out for years. Never picked up on a note of it. I'm sorry. That's authentic frontier gibberish. That's right. No, car, dang it, playing, dang it. I'm not going to say the next part. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here, guys. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to stay in the audience because I have something really cool for you guys to see. I hope you like it. It's not an owl bear, although they lurk out there, so you better beware of the owl bears. But I want you guys to check this out because this is really cool. It's not huge, but it's really cool. And it shows that the show, that we've got a little bit of stuff going on. And I hope you like it. But before I go, I want to thank CJD Young and Bob Jester for the supers. Wave of Mutilation, Michael Dale, Bob Jester, and Gonzalo Lira's Bar Tab. Thank you guys for re-upping. Stuff like that helps keep the lights on around here. So peace to you all. Much love. And check out the new closing credits. I'll talk to you guys later. Good night.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.